Now let's take a look at Banzhaf's power index. John Francis Banzhaf is an American legal activist and currently a law professor at George Washington University Law School. He is still alive, he's 80 years old, and he is still working as a law professor. In addition to developing this power index for weighted voting systems, he is also a founder of a smoking pressure group, Action on Smoking and Health. So, let's take a look at the Parliament of Icelandia. They have 200 members divided into 3 political parties. We'll call them P1, 2, and 3. P1 has 99 seats in Parliament, P2 has 98, P3 has 3. Decisions are made by a majority vote, which means that we need at least 101 votes for a motion to pass. So, we can think of Icelandia's parliament as this weighted voting system. So the question is, which party carries the most weight, or which party has the most power? So let's look at this. All possible winning combinations. So if party 1 and 2 team up, then we will have 197 votes for yes and 3 votes for no. If parties 1 and 2 team up, we have 102 votes yes and 98 votes no. If parties 2 and 3 team up, we have 101 votes for yes, 99 votes for no. And if all 3 of them vote yes, then clearly it is unanimous, 200-0. So this is an example of a situation where each party or each player cannot pass a vote without at least one other player teaming up with them. So even though the third political party only has 3 members of parliament, they actually have as much power as either of the large parties. So we're going to walk through the steps of how to officially calculate this. But first, we need some more vocabulary. So, a coalition describes any set of players that might join forces and all vote the same way. You can have a coalition anywhere from 1 player to all of the players. A grand coalition would consist of all players. So, to describe a coalition, we are going to use set notation. So, the coalition, including all 3 of these political parties, can be written as P123, P321, P132. It doesn't matter what the order is, but typically you do write them in numerical order. So P1, P2, P3 would be the most common way that you would see this coalition written. A winning coalition is a coalition with enough votes to win or to pass a motion. And a losing coalition is a coalition that does not have enough votes to pass a motion. We really only care about winning coalitions in this situation. A critical player, this is an important term, is any player in a winning coalition that that coalition must have in order to win. And we'll explain that a little bit more when we look at our example. So, let's go back to the Parliament of Icelandia. So we had said that these are the 4 coalitions that are winning coalitions. If players 1 and 2 team up, that gives us 197 votes. Players 1 and 3 team up, you have 102 votes. Players 2 and 3 is 101, and all of them is 200. Now, we want to know what the critical players are. So, if player 1 changed their mind, can player 2 win on their own? No, which means that player 1 is a critical player. If player 2 changed their mind, can player 1 win on their own? No. So player 2 is also a critical player. So that's what you should think about when you're trying to decide if someone is a critical player. If I get rid of player 1, can player 3 win on their own? No. So player 1 is critical. If I get rid of player 3, can player 1 win on their own? No. So player 3 is critical. If player 2 changes their mind, can player 3 win on their own? No. Player 2 is critical. If player 3 changes their mind, can player 2 win on their own? No. So player 3 is critical. Now, let's take a look at this last one. If player 1 changes their mind, can player 2 and 3 still pass a motion without them? Yes. So player 1 is not critical in this coalition. What about player 2? Can player 1 and 3 pass a motion without player 2? Yes. So player 2 is not critical. And lastly, if player 3 changes their mind, can player 1 and 2 still pass a motion without them? Yes. So player 3 is not critical, which means in this situation, there are no critical players in that last winning coalition. We'll come back to this and finish up this example in a minute. So, to calculate the Banzhaf power index, a player's power is measured by the number of times that that player is a critical player. So we are going to use fraction instead of whole numbers. So here are the steps. Make a list of all winning coalitions. Determine who is a critical player in each winning coalition. That's what we've already done. Then count the number of times each player is critical to a winning coalition. And then the Banzhaf power index is the number of times a player is critical divided by the total number of critical player counts. So let's go back real quick. So looking here, let me switch colors. Banzhaf power distribution. Okay, total, we have 6 critical players. Oops. So, the Banzhaf power index for player 1. How many times is player 1 a critical player? 2 out of 6, which is 1/3. What about for player 2? How many times is player 2 a critical player? 2 times out of 6, which is 1/3. And player 3 is critical 2 times out of 6, or 1/3. So all 3 of these political parties have equal power, which is what we talked through on the previous slide. So now, let's look at one more example. We are going to look at this weighted voting system, quota of 4, players with 3, 2, and 1 weights. So, I gave you this little chart here. There are 3 rows, which means there are 3 winning coalitions. I'm giving you that information. So, player 1 and player 2 would be a winning coalition because they have 5 votes. We only need 4. Player 1 and player 3 would be a winning coalition because they have 3 plus 1, which is 4 votes. Players 2 and 3, that's only 3 votes, so that's not enough. Well, if we have all 3 of them, that's 6 votes, so that would also be a winning coalition. So now let's look at our critical players. Here, can either of these players win on their own? No, so they are both critical players. The second winning coalition, players 1 and 3. Can either of those players win on their own? No, so they are both critical. And then the third one. If player 1 changed their mind, can players 2 and 3 pass a motion without them? No, so player 1 is critical. But if player 2 changes their mind, can players 1 and 3 pass a motion without them? Yes, that's what we have written here. Players 1 and 3 can win. So player 2 is not critical. And if player 3 changes their mind, can players 1 and 2 win without them? Yes, so player 3 is also not critical. Player 1 is the only critical player in that third coalition. So player 1 is a critical player 3 times, player 2 is a critical player once, player 3 is a critical player once. We have a total of 5 critical players. So the Banzhaf power index for player 1 is 3/5, for player 2 is 1/5, player 3 is 1/5. So clearly, player 1 has the most power in this situation. So each Banzhaf power index must be between 0 and 1, or between 0% and 1%. All of the power indexes must add up to 1, or to 100%. If someone has power of 0, it means that they have no power, so they are a dummy. If their power is 1, they have all the power, so they are a dictator. All right, one more piece of information here. You might ask yourself, well, how do I know if I've gotten all of the coalitions? Well, you can figure out the total number of possible coalitions, but you do have to then go through and check and see if every coalition is a winning coalition or a losing coalition. So, for any number of players, so we'll say for n players, how many coalitions are possible? Well, the answer is 2 to the n minus 1 power. And this comes from the power set, which is 2 to the n. So that means that there are 2 to the n possible subsets of a set, minus 1, which is the empty set. Because a coalition that consists of nobody is meaningless. So we have 2 to the n minus 1. So let's look back at our previous examples. How many different coalitions are possible? Well, here we have 3 players, so 2 to the third power minus 1 is 7. There are 7 possible coalitions. We saw that only 3 of them were winning coalitions. What about for this weighted voting system here? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, so 2 to the 5th minus 1 is 31. There are 31 possible coalitions. You would have to go through all of them and check and see which of them are winning and which of them are losing coalitions. And that is it for Banzhaf's power index.